I'd like to go ahead and call the meeting of Monday, July 9th, 2018 to order. I think I saw Nadia Sutton just a moment ago in the audience. Nadia, are you still here?
She's just coming in, Mayor.
Oh, there she comes. Nadia Sutton, would you come lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Because it sounds good with a French accent. Microphone, my love.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
justice for all.
Thank you, Nadia. Ms. City Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Councilmember Heilman. Here. Councilmember Horvath.
Here.
Councilmember Meister.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem D'Amico.
Yes.
Mayor Duran.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. All are present. Report of the closed session agenda. Will our city attorney or somebody else be doing that? City manager?
Thank you, Mayor. City Council convened this meeting at 6 o'clock. There were no public comments on the closed session agenda. Nothing added. The City Council met in closed session with outside counsel this evening to discuss potential initiation of litigation regarding a project located outside of the boundaries of the City of West Hollywood. No reportable action was taken. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, City Attorney. Colleagues, do we have any adjournment motions this evening? Councilmember Horvath?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to adjourn in memory of Dr. Diane Renk.
Oh, I'm very sorry. I forgot to get the agenda approved. Yeah, all right. Sorry. Hold on, Councilmember Horvath. Be right back to you. Let's go to approval of tonight's agenda. Let me ask staff first if we have any changes to the agenda this evening.
There was a request to combine item 3C and 6A, I believe.
Okay, 3C and 6A are actually both having to do with the scooters and mobile devices. Those will be combined into one item.
I'm sorry, 3C and 6B.
3C and 6B. All right, we'll combine those into one public hearing under 3C. Any other changes from staff? Nope.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay,
No.
all right, thank you. Colleagues, we had a last-minute request, I believe, from the appellants under item 3B for a continuance. While there's no legal basis for the continuance, often as a matter of courtesy, we grant appellants one continuance. Is there any opposition to granting that continuance? Or
What's the basis for the continue? I'm ready. I think their objection was that we hadn't had time to read their submittals, but I have read them.
Apparently, there was a packet of information that was not included in our report. I think the appellants thought were critical. I got a copy of that information sent to me today. With my job, I did not have time to review it. So I think that's the basis for the continuance request.
If you're not prepared, then I'm okay with continuing it.
All right. Is there any opposition to continuing item 3B? Okay, we will continue item 3B to a future council meeting. It'll probably be the August 20th meeting at this point. But if any speakers signed up for 3B, I guess we'll hear them tonight under consent calendar. Mike?
We
No, I
shouldn't
don't
hear
think
the
so.
speakers.
No.
I'm just saying if members of the public came up to talk about that, if they want to talk under general public comment, they can.
Well, they can, but those comments will not be part of the record, and they will not be taken into consideration.
Okay.
Yeah, they won't be part of the public hearing.
It won't be part of the record, true. But if a resident doesn't want to come back, we can certainly hear them under general public comment. Yeah. All right. All right, any other changes to the agenda? Councilmember Heilman?
Is there any possibility of putting 4A, 4B, or 5C on consent?
4A is the Star Communities item. 4B is the Transit Services item. What was the third one, Councilmember Heilman?
5C.
5C is the Energy Efficiency Upgrades. Any objection to putting those?
Yeah.
Councilmember Meister?
I'd like to keep 4A on the
All right, Councilmember
agenda.
Meister has requested we keep 4A on the agenda. Any objection to 4B or 5C being moved to consent? Hearing none. Mayor Pro Tem D'Amico?
I have no objection to that. I have a question about item 6B. I think there was some discussion with staff earlier about whether this reflected the last council meeting in which we discussed this, and I thought they were going to table it, but I guess maybe that wasn't given, information wasn't given to the city clerk. So I'm just wondering if we're, if that's what happened. I don't know if that's what happened. When we got off the phone at 5 o'clock, they were going to table it.
6B, my recollection is of the council discussion and direction was that you wanted to pass an ordinance banning this type of activity. The ordinance that you introduced did not really quite do that. And so what we did was we amended it to do what we thought we were directed to do by the council. The council did not want a pilot program, but in fact directed that there be a ban. So that's why we brought that back to you.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but I guess I don't, and maybe we can talk about it again this evening, but I don't think it reflects necessarily all of the nuances that were brought up in that discussion. And so perhaps we can talk about them tonight, but I think it puts the discussion of that at a disadvantage because it features and talks about some things that some people heard, but doesn't talk about other things other people heard. And that's my concern, that we're not actually having a discussion of what happened that night. We're having a discussion of this agenda item. So I'll leave it at that, but when I asked staff earlier today, I thought we were going to hold this over for a week and have the discussion next week.
Could we hear from the particular staff person that you had that conversation with? Are they here?
Okay, why don't we, at least for now, they're combined under 3C. And if we decide we need to table 6B, we can. I think,
Oscar is here.
Oscar, you want to come up?
Good evening, Oscar Delgado, Deputy City Manager. We went back and checked the direction that council was given. Part of the cleanup that we're coming back with is the council approved the legislative item as it was written before, and it said by permit, which gave the implication that you could get a permit. But what we heard that night was a ban. So we want to bring it back here to have the full discussion on what we've heard based on the comments from the majority of the council and the final direction. But the ordinance as it was approved before said that you couldn't do mobility scooters per se unless you had a permit, but the direction was that we would not give a permit. So we decided to keep the item on for further discussion.
okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Delgado. Okay, Councilmember Horvath, any changes to the agenda?
All my comments have been reflected. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Meister, any changes? All right. What about item 6A, which is the financing of the permit by plate passes? Can 6A be moved to consent, or does that require discussion?
We did get an email about discontinuing the distribution of those permits at the sheriff's station. I don't know if that's included in this item. It seemed like a good suggestion now that we have an online system.
So it seems like we need to talk about it then.
Okay,
'cause
so we'll keep that on our regularly scheduled agenda. What about 5A, which is the item to cancel the August 6th meeting? Can that go to consent, or does that need discussion?
I think we need to keep those meetings. We started canceling them when
Okay.
Lauren was the
We'll keep
mayor and we were having 7-hour meetings.
Keep it on the agenda. So the only changes then to the agenda are moving item 4A and 5C to consent.
4B and 5C.
I'm sorry, 4B and 5C to consent.
And tabling.
And tabling 3B. Is there a motion to move the agenda as amended? It's been moved. Is there a second? Moved by D'Amico, seconded by Horvath. All those in favor indicate with an aye. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, now we move to adjournment motions. Councilmember Horvath.
Thank you very much, Mayor. First, I'd like to adjourn in memory of Dr. Diane Rank. Dr. Diane Rank Bolke passed away on June 18th at the age of 73. Her husband is Mike Bolke, who's the deputy to LA Metro Vice Chair and Mayor of Inglewood, Jim Butts. Dr. Rank earned a PhD in psychology and enjoyed a career as a licensed psychologist, and she loved all things political, crosswords puzzles, reading, and enjoying time with family. I'd also like to adjourn in memory of Ghazi Halal Haddad. Ghazi Haddad was the father of West Hollywood community member Hani Haddad, and he passed away on June 30th at the age of 82. I'd also like to adjourn in memory of Jim Napier. His father, he leaves behind his father Jim and sister Susan. Jim passed away tragically this weekend while hiking in Denver with his girlfriend. He was only 31 years old and is someone I grew up with. And as is our tradition in the city of West Hollywood, to adjourn our council meetings in honor of the military service personnel who were killed in service to our country since our last meeting. They are Corporal Joseph Maciel. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Without objection, we'll adjourn in their memories. Councilmember Meister.
Thank you. I would like to adjourn in the memory of Efim Berkovich, who was 92. He died June 15th. Efim was the father of Joseph Berkovich, Horn Plaza's board president for over 20 years and local business owner, and father-in-law of Tamara Berkovich, also a local business owner. Both Joseph and Tamara are well-known members of the Russian community here in West Hollywood.
Thank you. Without objection, adjourn in that name. Councilmember Heilman.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem D'Amico. I have two adjournment requests this evening. I'd like to ask us to adjourn in memory of Jim Duncan, one of our city employees. Jim was a member of the West Hollywood City Hall family for 20 years. He was the systems engineer supervisor in the city's IT division. He will be remembered by many in City Hall as someone who was always willing to help with a smile and a good sense of humor. Jim was a lover of life and the outdoors. He loved camping, rock climbing, going on new adventures with his family and friends. He and his wife Claudia met here at City Hall and were married for 12 years. Our hearts and sympathies go out to Claudia and their two children, Jimmy and Sierra, as we adjourn tonight in Jim's memory. So Jim Duncan will remember tonight. And finally, the last adjournment request in memory of Tab Hunter. Tab Hunter is actually somebody I met a long time ago in the 70s. Screen idol during the 1950s, during the golden age of Hollywood, deeply closeted in a secret relationship with Tony Perkins from Psycho. But in the latter part of his life, he came out and was in John Waters movies, including Lust in the Dust and others, and became a very active participant with the LGBT community, and he died earlier today. So I ask that we adjourn in Tab Hunter's name. He was a known personality up on the Sunset Strip for many years. So with deepest condolences and without objection, we'll adjourn in all of those names and memories. All right, we have one presentation tonight. I believe Councilmember Horvath, you have a presentation?
Thank you, Mayor. This weekend I had the honor and pleasure of attending and representing the city at the National Conference for the National Organization for Women. I'll talk about that in my council member comments, but tonight I wanted to create the opportunity to have a special presentation to West Hollywood's own Ivy Bottini, who was recognized and featured at this national conference and awarded the Woman of Courage Award. She, as we know, is an artist and activist, but for the National Organization for Women, she actually designed the NOW logo, the one that everyone knows and sees on NOW rounds, and at the protests I'm sure will be coming after whatever announcement is made today. You will be seeing that NOW logo everywhere, and that logo was created by West Hollywood's own Ivy Bottini. The recent Statue of Liberty action that we heard about in the news, it was not the first time the Statue of Liberty was a destination of action. Ivy Bottini actually led an action with the Statue of Liberty, unveiling banners that said, "Women of the world unite," calling all women in this country and the men who support us to take action. And at this conference, Karen Ayers, chair of our Women's Advisory Board, spoke about the purge that happened in the organization, at which point Ivy and many others were kicked out of the organization simply for coming out and being lesbian. And her courage to continue her activism and leadership is something that the organization wanted to recognize at the national level. And so here to present the award is our local chapter president, Hollywood Now chapter president John Erickson, along with Vice President Karen Ayers and other members. Nadia Sutton from our Women's Advisory Board are here to make the presentation.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Horvath and West Hollywood City Council. I'm John Erickson, and I'm glad this mic can actually reach me. This past weekend at the conference, I was bending over while I was giving my speech, and we had to do it in order to honor Ivy. So many of you may not know who Ivy Botini is. That's a joke, because if you don't know who Ivy Botini is, she's a force of nature. And I just want to share one quick story. The woman that introduced Ivy and the award this weekend was a young queer feminist activist, specifically a teacher. And when she read Ivy's story and her work that she did to defeat the Briggs Initiative, it brought tears to her eyes from the stage. And she said, "This woman changed my life before I was even born." And so I think that sums up pretty much everything we need to know about our dear Ivy. And with that, I'm going to introduce the Woman of the Hour.
Ivy, the microphone at the podium. Microphone, there you go.
There we go, there we go, there we go. I was probably doing things before many of you weren't born too. And so we come full circle. I was the first one that got thrown out of the organization because I believed lesbians had rights. And broke my heart for about a month. And then I moved to California. One of the best things I've ever done. I loved this city. It felt like my mom's arms were around me when I arrived. I mean that. That's the way it felt. And I know it feels that way for many people who come here to get rid of and avoid the oppression. And they heal in this city. So I guess one of the things that I really want to work on for as long as I'm here is housing. I really don't want to see our people have to leave this city, this mother that has arms that embraces this city, Too many people I know have had to leave West Hollywood. That's not right. So we have a lot of money. We have 24 million. I'd like to see that used for housing. Who said that? I did. All right. Who else wants that? Woohoo! Do you realize right now we just started a movement? All right. Somebody call me and we'll pick a date. And we will get together and we will fight for more housing. All right. I guess I'll shut up now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivy, and congratulations. We'll now move to the public comment portion of our agenda. Each public comment is limited to 2 minutes, allotted for each speaker. Please understand that the Brown Act prohibits us from responding directly to any comments that you may make during public comment. And we will take the consent calendar items first, to be followed by items of general interest. We allot 20 minutes for this period of public comment. We'll have a second public comment section of the agenda later on this evening. The first speaker is Tom DeMille, to be followed by Victor Olmanchenko.
My name is Tom DeMille, a city of West Hollywood, and a candidate for the 5th time for City Council, March 5th, 2019. I started Adopt a Grandmother program last year, and I'd like to say hello to my 4 grandmothers, Ruth Williams and Donna Sawa. I hope you're getting well, and her sexy sister Barbara, or sexy grandmother, and Jean Dobrin, who I love very much. I was going to speak about a few of these items, so let's speak about them. The clearing of streets, the sidewalks, they're filthy. Let's do something about it. You want to do the license plates now for the residential parking. Well, we have preferential parking throughout our city. What we don't have is people having dinner with one another anymore. So maybe we should relax on Thursday nights until 10 o'clock so all of our residents can have dinner with one another like they used to, and we can have some community back in our city. We need a red lane throughout our city for bikes and birds and skateboards and anything that moves, that doesn't run over senior citizens. Like the Freedom Trail in Boston. Follow the Freedom Trail. It'll take you to all of the places. We need a red lane through our city to protect our residents from being run over. Now, this council has either forgotten where they've come from or they don't know where they're going, or maybe both. I know that, 20 years ago, Sal Garriello built my house, the Actors Fund of America house. And, there were 700 people at his funeral. And I sat them. I sat all 700 people at that funeral. And the reason why those people showed up for Sal is because he touched people's lives. And you don't. And it's time you do. And if you don't, step aside. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Victor Olmanchenko, to be followed by Joe Clapsaddle.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Victor Olmanchenko, a longtime resident of West Hollywood, and I congratulate Ivy Bottini. I think housing is a very, very important issue, and as the community gets together, let's work and make housing affordable. There's a lot of issues to attack, and that's a very important issue, but what I wanted to talk about was thank you for 2F and for the city staff working on improving safety along our Fountain Freeway. I'm calling it the Fountain Freeway. It's called Fountain Avenue, and I know that the staff have looked at and evaluated the very important intersection of Fountain and Fairfax, and where there was a proposal to put in left turn signals in all 4 directions. It looks like there's only 2 directions that meet the requirements, but the staff will continue to look at the safety light also at North Poinsettia Place, and whatever we can do to increase pedestrian and bicycling safety along the Fountain Freeway would be much appreciated. What I appreciate too, Councilmember Meister and Councilmember D'Amico, is that you are looking more into the community gardening program to try to restart that. At one point, this city had 5 pieces, 5 community gardens operating when we had the most number. Now we're down to 0. So whatever we can do, I know that in talking with Elizabeth Savage in the past when she was our housing director, there was, I believe, a task force within the city called the Vacant and Abandoned Properties Task Force. Well, maybe you could start with that list, however many are on that. I don't really know. I haven't seen the list. And perhaps start with that in the beginning and see where we could put some more green, some more community garden space back into our fine city, because at one point we did have 4 of these community gardens, and we should have at least 1. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Joe Clapsaddle, to be followed by Elena Goldenberg.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Joseph Clapsaddle, and I'm a 25-year resident of West Hollywood, and I've come tonight to speak about the Robertson Lane project and what is going on in our city. I am in full support of this project, as well as having followed it through its processes of the Historical Preservation Commission, the Planning Commission, and the City Council, and their subsequent approval. But like many of you, I've had people knock on my door recently asking me for a signature to overturn this City Council's vote approving Robertson Lane. In fact, it's happened to me 5 times, most recently this afternoon, by a very nice young woman. And if you have followed the public hearings on this project, you also know that these people are spreading misinformation and, in some instances, outright untruths. They have stated falsehoods. They told me specifically on 3 occasions that the factory would be demolished. They told me that the City Council, you, my friends who represent us, have cut a deal with the developer to let them pay hotel workers less than minimum wage. They've also talked about the height of the building, which I think we've gone over and over many times. But something else happened. I heard, and this is rumor, but I got it from a good source, that in certain parts of the city, they're telling our Russian population and some of our seniors that the Robertson Lane project will tear down their affordable housing. And mostly my friend Lauren Meister, they've mentioned you on 3 occasions. Lauren, I've been your friend. I know you're an honest person and you have strong beliefs in integrity. And even if we don't agree, I know your heart with the city is in the right place and you work very hard. But tonight I'm going to ask you to please disavow the tactics and the audacity of these representatives of the Robertson Lane opponents.
Thank you, Joe.
Please, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Your time has expired. Thank you. Elena Goldenberg, to be followed by Lee Walkup.
Hi, good evening. I want to say what I'm going to say in 2 languages, and I ask you more time for me, if it's possible. Extra time, okay. My name is Elena Goldenberg. I'm a resident of West Hollywood for more than 24 years and member of Russian community here in West Hollywood. I want to speak against the terrible solicitation of Russian-speaking people and senior citizens by the people in West Hollywood opposing the Robertson Lane project. These people from outside of our city are lying to old and Russian residents to get signatures for their petition. Several Russian people from multiple places told me opponents of Robertson Lane came to their door and said the project would demolish the entire block of their homes on Fuller Avenue. These outside people are trying to scare seniors and residents who don't speak English by telling them lies. And of course they sign it because they don't want their homes to be demolished. I hope you city council members are as upset as I am. This kind of lying and abuse should not be allowed in West Hollywood. Do not sign this misleading petition. I understand that petition could go through, but it's okay. The petition is a legal thing. Everyone could do that, but do not lie when you do that. You have to tell people the truth and let them decide to sign it or not to sign. And do not if people came to your home and lied to get your signature, call 310-905-9492, and we will bring you a form to correct the problem. And I ask council members and city to dismiss this petition, or at least do not count Russian-speaking people's signatures, because most of them, or I would say all of them, did not understand what they signed. I hope it will never happen again, and I hope people who did it will be punished. And I agree with the previous speaker. Your name, Ms. Lauren, was mentioned to these people.
Thank you, Elena.
And I want
Elena,
to
your time
translate
has
it.
expired.
Yeah, I ask.
Can't go any longer. I have a lot of people that want to speak. They each
I
get 2
want
minutes.
to translate it in Russian because Russian speaker
We can't
needs to
do it,
understand.
Elena. I'm sorry.
They said that I have to ask you if
They're
it's
not
possible.
running the meeting. I am. I'm sorry. Your 2 minutes has expired. Thank you. We got your message. Thank you. Lee Walkup to be followed by Rick Watts.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, my name is Lee Walkup, and I'm a 26-year resident of the city of West Hollywood. We are beyond pleased and relieved that our apartment building on North Sweetser Avenue is rid of its resident drug dealers after 8 months of their malevolent intrusion into the lives of 14 other sets of tenants and 2 neighboring properties. It took the effort of the landlord, the resident manager, who was almost bribed by the drug dealers, an attorney not specializing in eviction law, unfortunately, despite the recommendations of Councilmember Heilman to the contrary. And yet, finally, after the supportive uprising of our tenants and those of the next-door neighbors, we think they are gone. After 5 months of court proceedings, they were served with a writ of possession in behalf of the landlord and a court finding that they were, in fact, a public nuisance. They seem to be gone, but their apartment is undergoing $20,000 worth of repairs for vandalism. I would like to say that the city was instrumental in getting rid of these drug dealers, but I cannot. Unfortunately, I cannot. During those months, I was reminded by a member of this council that we are a pro-tenant city. Well, I am a tenant also. The city attorney's office took 3.5 months to determine that the city would not be obligated to act upon the petition of the 14 sets of other tenants' request that these people be removed. General law city like West Hollywood is not required to do that. The landlord spent $20,000 in upgrading security. Taxpayers likely spent $100,000 in 50-plus tagged visits, along with paramedics and the sheriff and fire department. 5 arrests, and I was a victim of almost assault, and I got put into Cedars-Sinai for over $5,000 for approximately 24 hours. This cannot go on.
Thank
but
you,
they're
Lee.
gone, we hope. Thank you.
Thank you. Rick Watts to be followed by Tai Sunanan.
Thank you, members of the City Council. First off, again, congratulations to Ivy and to John Erickson on your election, John, and your award, Ivy, in recognition for work long. It's done a lot of good for many people. I want to echo what my housemate of 12 years, Lee Walkup, has said. All of you know the problems that we have endured over on Sweetser for the last 2/3 of a year. And I too would like to say that the city was of more help and that the city attorney helped. The representatives of Assemblyman Bloom's office and State Senator Allen's office have a different reading, I have to say, Mr. Jenkins, on what is and is not permitted on behalf of general law cities in terms of invoking California Penal Code 373A. And if it needs a legislative fix, then I hope that you will do your part in trying to get that legislative fix, because there are at least 2 other properties within a block of where we're at that are dealing with the same problem. And I know Councilman Heilman dealt with the same problem in his building, and there are a lot of mom and pop property owners in this city that simply can't afford the kind of expenses that our poor landlord had to endure. And God knows if the city council or that the taxpayers of this city can't keep ponying up $100,000. Thank God nobody was hurt in this, but there was a mugging in front of our building right at the door when somebody tried to get in about 2 months ago, and I just found out last week that there was a mugging in broad daylight in the same block of Sweetser that likely was associated with some of the ne'er-do-wells that were hanging out. We're still having some of the residue that still haven't gotten the message that their hosts no longer live there. So please do your part. Let's figure this out. Work with and make sure that proper funding is allocated to the police to do what they need to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Tai Sunanen, to be followed by Amanda Goodwin.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Tai Sunanen. I am a resident of West Hollywood. I work in West Hollywood. I dine in West Hollywood, and any opportunity I get to brag about this city, I will. I'm here to just say a simple thank you. From June 27th through July 2nd, I brought 23 volunteers to McAllen, Texas to help reunite children with their families. Some who came with me were from the city of West Hollywood. On Saturday, June 30th, as we were protesting in front of the federal courthouse in Brownsville, Texas, shouting, "Si se puede," and "shut it down," I knew at that very moment my city was also hosting a march. So thank you, Councilmember Lauren Meister. I want to thank each and every one of you. There's a plethora of issues that need to get solved in the city and around our neighborhoods. But you know what? We're standing against a bully in the White House that doesn't have the same American values as the rest of us. And here in West Hollywood, myself and my neighbors and all these residents, we are freedom fighters. We are truth seekers, and we are justice advocates. And we will never tolerate a bully telling us what to do or institute policies that rip children out of the hands of their parents. So let's do what we can to keep this alive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ty. Amanda Goodwin, to be followed by Mike Carter.
Good evening. I want to congratulate Ivy. Ivy's a friend of mine, and Ivy's done so much in her life, and I think she's going to do a lot more. I would like to talk about I want to first say, I forgot to say this last time, that you know hell is frozen over when Motherlode has the best storefront on the boulevard. I mean, that's pretty crazy. That's progress. The 3, I think it's 3B with the project up on Sunset. I just have to say, I'm with Ivy. We need more affordable housing in West Hollywood. I am a landlord. I do my best to you know, keep it somewhere in the middle and still make money as a landlord. But we cannot keep on taking stuff off the market so people can't move here. And we certainly should not be getting in the short-term rental business. I mean, let the Oakwood have that. And if we can't rein in and harness Airbnb, how are we going to start? I just think it's going to set a really bad precedent, and it's going to be a very slippery slope. And as much as I love one of the gentlemen heading up this project, I just cannot get behind it. And I just urge us not to to go there. These people knew what they were getting into. I suggest first they repaint the building, maybe they can sell them. Also, the Athens and picking up all the debris, I don't understand when people are moving out of our city why it's our responsibility to pick up their trash that they live on the parkways. It's just a never-ending situation, and I got in a huge fight with a neighbor who was leaving just because I asked him if he had called the city, which he had not, and I happened to be there. I made sure I was there so the trash would be taken away, and it was a lot. But I just don't understand why we do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Carter, to be followed by Adam Bass.
Good evening. I want to thank City Council for a bunch of things, but with only 2 minutes instead of a standard 3, I don't have the time. By the end of the evening, I hope to congratulate Campbell, Garino, and Bortfeld, however, on 6A permit by plate parking. As part of a larger problem resulting from incompetent handling and manipulation of data collection, 2 previous parking studies for North Ogden Drive fabricated the disqualification of 5 years of sorrowful attempts for necessary parking restrictions. First, there was failure to follow through with due process after we had cleared 2 of 3 conditions. Meeting the 3rd condition was a given due to our proximity to the Orange Grove parking lot. Then the petition inexplicably disappeared. Next, in a second study months ago, and again inexplicably so, there was a failure to adhere to the hours of data collection that were adhered to in the first study, then cutting 2 hours from the data study daily time window, and finally excluding peak parking occupancy times on our street. No satisfactory explanation was available to the 21 present at our neighborhood watch meeting on June 30th. Parking management was present. Parking management told us, though, that it would be very handy if we would just queue up for a 3rd study in January of 2019. But alas, we all know we'll have failed the 3rd condition by then because 7811 Hotel Project will have sucked up the Orange Grove parking lot when and if such a vulgar intrusion as this comes to pass. Failure is and has been built into this process. Who is controlling the quality of life and livability in our neighborhoods? Is it all of you? Is it all of us? Or is it you know who? Just before 45 city parking spaces are lost on Orange Grove and 7811 construction workers, contractors, employees, and customers commandeer our parking on our unguarded street, Faring Capital will go on at the PC hearings about how much parking they are providing with their too big for its britches in the first place, 7811 Unified Mixed-Use Hotel Project. We ask City Council to direct parking services to supply remedy and relief, following through with immediate restudy and implementation procedures, with hours of study to be determined by the people who live on Ogden Drive, familiar with the challenges of parking where they live. Now, I have an appointment with Mr. Garino on Wednesday at 9:30 a.m., and what do you think we should talk about?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Adam Bass, to be followed by Joyce Heftel.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you for this opportunity. I don't speak here very often. I was trying to think, and it's been about 5 years since I talked during public comment, but I've been really disturbed with the petitions that have been coming around about Robertson Lane. And although I'm a member of the Planning Commission, I want to make sure everyone knows that I'm speaking just on my own behalf this evening. I'm a firm believer that people can come to different conclusions looking at the exact same evidence. And I believe that although I supported the Robertson Lane project as a resident as well as a member of the Planning Commission, that some people might not agree with that. But I think it's really disingenuous of Unite here to come to the door, my door twice, and to fabricate these lies. I mean, they've been ridiculous lies, up to and telling me that there were 7 members of the city council. I named all 5 of you and asked them to name the last 2. They couldn't do that, obviously. But again, in my role as a planning commissioner, and I thank you for that trust, I take meetings with anyone who requests them. And I met with the folks from Unite here at Astro Burger on February 12th. They told me they would support this project if the developer would just sign an agreement that he would have a union hotel. They haven't done that. And they're not telling that to residents, and that's the reason they're passing these petitions and funding folks to come around and tell us these lies. They're walking around telling people these lies, but not saying what their ultimate goal is. I want it to be a union hotel. I said that when I made the motion at the Planning Commission that was approved unanimously. I would love it to be a union hotel. But if they were just honest with folks when they were walking this around, it would be a much less divisive campaign that they were running. So I don't speak here very often, but I thought it was important to stand up, speak up, and say that, just tell the truth. Let's have an honest, fact-based dialogue about this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Joyce Heftel.
Hi, Joyce Heftel, long-term resident, West Hollywood. I came because of 3B. I'm very disappointed that I can't speak to it. But I've been speaking to this since 2004 with a lot of residents, as the three Johns have had to listen to me through all these years, and Paul and Michael. And I was at every hearing, every city council meeting, every planning commission meeting. I had many of you up on the roof of our building. Never once during any of that time was the conceivability of an Airbnb-esque type property ever mentioned. And I can assure you, the residents would have gone nuts. This room was filled. Well, it was in the park, but it was filled. One of the most ridiculous things I heard at the Planning Commission meeting was their attorney saying they didn't know that there were entitlements, that they couldn't do it, or what the entitlements were. And I found that amazing because Jeff Seymour, who had been the lobbyist for all the other developers, was sitting right in the middle of them, which made what they were saying, gee whiz, we didn't do our due diligence, and gosh, we didn't know, and so just let us do what we want. They're taking away 90-something permanent residents, which is why all the bonuses were given to begin with. The tax loss, and how will you stop other developers from getting entitlements to do long-term housing, building, and then turning around and selling to somebody who says, I'm going to do another Airbnb? Please uphold the planning, the staff and the unanimous planning commission decision to not allow this. And I'll be back when you put it back off the table.
All right, thank you, Joyce. Colleagues, we've now come to 25 minutes of public comment, but there's only a handful more, so if you will all acquiesce, I'm just going to go ahead and barrel through the rest. Is that okay? All right, there's a group of speakers now who have signed up for item 3B. I will call you, but I want to caution you, if you speak on 3B, it's not going to be part of the record. You may comment if you wish, or you may pass and decide to come back when the item is continued, or you can speak both times, like Joyce Heftel, if you wish. I just wanted to bring that up. So Larry LeBeau, do you wish to speak? He's gone. John DuPont, do you wish to speak? Pass? All right. Ivy, do you wish to speak on 3B or the next time?
Can I speak from here?
I don't think they can hear you at home if you do that.
Oh, yeah.
We can have Karen bring you the microphone, though. All right? All right. Okay, Ivy Bottini to be followed by Steve Martin, to be followed by Eric Bogan, who will be our final speaker. Karen, can you turn the switch on for Ivy there?
Go ahead, speak.
It's on. Oh, yes, it is. Very simply, no Airbnb. I mean, it's like a bait and switch. And you know what a bait and switch is. No. You give them permission to do one thing, don't let them do another. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ivy. Steve Martin, to be followed by Eric Bogan.
Steve Martin, West Hollywood, and I want to thank council and staff for the left turn signal on Fountain. It's really needed, particularly when you're going eastbound, coming south. So we really appreciate the attention. Also, for many people don't know, but I'm a landlord now, have been for a couple of years. I bought a duplex, and I rent the other unit, and I got the notice of the amount of rent increase that I can give a tenant, and it's 3%, which was kind of surprising because I've been so used to seeing rent increases that have sometimes even been under 1%. And, you know, that's actually a lot. You know, for somebody who's paying $1,800 a month in rent, and I think a lot of people in West Hollywood are doing that, that's, you know, over $50. And for people who are paying a lot more than that, it's getting closer to 100. My concern is that when we're doing this earthquake retrofitting, that we really need to look at all the aspects of this, because the cost of living is not going to go down in the foreseeable future with the $15 minimum wage, with oil prices, with whatever, God knows whatever Trump's doing with the trade wars. And so I think we really need to look at ways to minimize the impacts of this retrofitting cost, the pass-throughs to low-income and moderate-income people. And I know there was some discussion of what we do with some of that money that we got from the marijuana applications, that $3 million. And we may want to figure out a policy to help people who really are struggling to be able to pay that money through, the city can help pay that money, because it's really hard for long-term tenants and people on limited income, people on Social Security to do that. And then lastly, I'm very concerned about 2L giving Michael Avietti, Stormy Daniels' attorney, a forum in West Hollywood. I mean, it's really not worked out well for Ms. Daniels, this media circus, and it's not working out well for us. I mean, if we just need some jackass attorney that's gone bankrupt, we don't have to look that far to find one. So, thank you.
Thank you. Eric Bogan?
Hi, everybody. My name is Eric Bogan. This is my first time speaking ever here. I am a resident of West Hollywood. I live here and I work here, and I'm here to just voice my support for the scooters. The scooters are amazing. They are environmentally friendly. They are a safe way to get around, especially in bike lanes. We obviously need more bike lanes, but they're affordable. They're way cheaper than an Uber. When you're going within West Hollywood, to take an Uber around is expensive and causes traffic. The scooters are cheaper and cause none of that. We need more of them. These are great. They potentially need regulation, but please do not ban them.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
That concludes our public comment for the evening. We will now move to council member comment. I think this week I will start to my right. Councilmember Horvath, any comments?
Thank you, Mayor. First, on item 4B, there was reference in item 3 in the staff report regarding one of the transportation providers using Lyft for rides that they can't provide themselves. I know that not all TNCs can guarantee accessibility for those who might need it, so I just want to make sure that we are, in fact, as staff, making sure that everybody who needs a ride will have an accessible ride should they need one. With regard to cannabis, I met with MedMen regarding some community issues that were raised related to patient access as well as data collection. I also wanted to report a company offered a campaign contribution, but I advised them that I won't be taking any campaign contributions from cannabis companies until the hearing process is completed in the city. As far as meetings that I attended since our last council meeting, the LA County Division of the League of Cities, I participated in their legislative call. I also I'm happy to report that the city's resolution that was submitted with the National League of Cities regarding the Me Too movement passed out of committee and will be approved this fall at the conference here that's being held in Los Angeles. I attended several Metro meetings with staff as well as the board breakfast, continuing our work on Crenshaw North. I also gave a presentation to the Beverly Hills Los Angeles Realtors Association, and special thanks to James Litz and Chris Bowen for making that opportunity possible. Our coalition is growing and it's exciting to see the train coming. I represented the city at the Clean Power Alliance. I also had the good fortune of participating in Paris Pride, and it was very exciting to see Pride in Paris. And as I mentioned earlier in the meeting, I did attend the National Now conference in San Jose this weekend, along with Karen Ayers, our chair of our WAB, as well as John Erickson, who was recently just elected this weekend to the National Now board. So I congratulate him on that. And also on your new position as legislative and community affairs for Planned Parenthood, Director of Public Affairs, kind of close, but it's a new position with Planned Parenthood Los Angeles, and he will be our advocate right here from the first pro-choice city in America, working with Planned Parenthood. Congratulations on your new post. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Meister.
One more thing, I'm so sorry.
I'm
I also want to congratulate our sometime city attorney, Lauren Langer. She is obviously one of our city attorneys who works here in the city as well as with many others. She was named top 40 under 40 attorney in California by the Daily Journal, and she was recognized for her practice, including advising cities on the critical issues impacting local governments, cannabis regulation, affordable housing, the environment, historic preservation, and other land use and development issues. So congratulations to Lauren.
Thank you. Councilmember Meister.
Thank you, Mayor. So on the consent calendar, I just have a few comments. On item 2E, the HIB Zero Initiative Year 2 mid-year evaluation, I just, one of the things that was brought up was that about the insurance, about the percentage of insured, and I just wondered if there was anything that the city could do to increase the insured rate by maybe working with Covered California in some way. Maybe staff can look into that. On item 2J, the House of Soccer event, I just would like staff to look into what we can do so that these events don't impact our dog parks. On 2L, the panel discussion, I assume that the panel will include more than Mr. Avenatti, and you might want to consider a few of the speakers we had at the rally on June 30th. Also, if this panel is well attended, we may want to consider a series of panel discussions, maybe each themed a different topic. And also, staff may want to look into Pod Save America as moderators. They actually are in our city. And then item 2K, the community gardening program. I want to thank Mayor Pro Tem D'Amico for co-sponsoring and thank my colleagues for supporting that item. I think anything we can do to make West Hollywood greener and give the community an opportunity to be involved in that is a positive. As far as attendance, there were no official meetings. I did attend the retirement party for Robin Connerly and Ted Zaluki of the West Hollywood Community Housing Corp. And the annual historic preservation event. And then on June 30th, we had a very exciting and well-attended rally here in West Hollywood Park. I want to thank our mayor for speaking, and also Rob Reiner, Ivy Bottini, who else did we have? Michael Aguilera from Adam Schiff's office, Congressman Schiff's office, Seppi Shine from HRC, Stephen Rohde, who is a constitutional lawyer who was formerly with the ACLU, Chaz Bono, and Eugene Jarecki, also a filmmaker, and they were just all wonderful speakers, and I just want to thank them all for agreeing to come to the rally on such short notice, and for all the people that attended, and for staff for helping me set that up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Heilman.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had two comments tonight. First, I wanted to thank Ty Sunanan for his efforts in Texas, and thank you for organizing that trip and the work that you did. Secondly, I wanted to report some unfortunate news, and that is that I don't think we're really working as hard as we can in addressing the homeless problem at Plummer Park. We got a very troubling email today about drug usage there. I also noticed the same problem on the west side in front of the liquor store at La Cienega and Santa Monica. The area smells of urine. There were 2 people, as I drove here, passed out on the sidewalk. This is something that we've talked about with the sheriffs before and with our homeless outreach program, but clearly this is what we're seeing as a council. This is what the public is seeing. It's not acceptable. We need to make sure that our sheriffs are enforcing when these kind of occurrences take place, and that our outreach workers are working on those problems. We also need to address the problem of that liquor store selling to people who were clearly intoxicated. And this has been an ongoing problem, and it's a store I go to all the time, not for liquor, I don't drink, but, and not for intoxication, no. But it is an ongoing problem at that particular location, and I'm sure there are other places like that. So I'd like to ask the city manager to work on that and follow up and get back to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem D'Amico.
Thank you, Mayor. Following up on what my colleague just said about the homeless, I think there was a suggestion about putting a dumpster near the park on Poinsettia by the lot, given that there's such a concentration of homeless people in Los Angeles at that park. I have been by there several times, and there is just trash everywhere. And admittedly, it is just south of our border, but it might be the kind of place that people would just throw trash away if there was a place to put it. And I know that we've been working with Councilmember Koretz in Los Angeles, and he has a much bigger problem and a much bigger district, but I think that's a source of a good deal of the problem on the east side, and it would perhaps be time again to visit that with his office. So thank you, Councilmember Heilman. I just had one comment, which is that under item 2G, the annual arts grants program, there's a series of grants identified, and the last one listed is a grant to CalArts. And I know that like the Human Rights Speaker Series, that grant was moved into the budget. So I believe, maybe Andrew and Maribel can look into this, but I believe there should be $10,000 more for arts grants available to be given away during this cycle. I know John Leonard is going to look into that, but I think for all of those who made applications, that's perhaps some good news, and we can have some additional grants dollars, because I think that's now listed twice in our budget. Other than that, I wanted to mention that I didn't receive donations from anyone with any business on tonight's council agenda.
Thank you, John. Just have a few comments before we get to the city manager's comments. One, I wanted to let people know I represented the city of West Hollywood at a convening of LA County mayors that Mayor Eric Garcetti of Los Angeles held in Santa Monica 2 weeks ago, with about 30 mayors from across Los Angeles County, with a focus on police and public safety and the continuing restoration of the Santa Monica Bay. I was also at the NALEO conference in Phoenix, the National Association of Latino Elected Officials, where I serve as chair. It was a gathering of 3,000 Latino electeds from all over the United States, and obviously recent events were of great concern for those elected officials around the country. It's great to be a part of that growing coalition of people seeking humane treatment of immigrants in this country. And the third announcement is that I represented the city at a dinner that Council President Herb Wesson held in Los Angeles, called Embrace LA. Embrace LA is a discussion on racism, and he gathered mayors from across greater Los Angeles County, from Compton and Commerce and Bell Gardens and Montebello and Culver City, and myself representing West Hollywood. And he was excited because I was a twofer. I was both Latino and gay, so he was happy to have me there. And we had a very serious discussion about race. And I think this brings up a point of, I think, what is happening in response to the phenomena of Trumpism. I think people across our community and across all communities in Southern California are looking for ways to maintain the greater good in the midst of such dark times. I want to just mention that I was walking down Robertson over the weekend, and I noticed 3 gay men as they were passing Bossa Nova. There was a little old Latino guy who was sweeping the sidewalk. This was like 9 in the morning on Sunday. He was sweeping the sidewalk in preparation for Bossa Nova's busy day. And these 3 white gay men walked up and just said, "Buenos dias, senor." And this little old Latino man just smiled from cheek to cheek and said, "Buenos dias, gracias." And it's those random acts of kindness, I think, that we exhibit to one another during these dark and terrible times that is going to pull us all through. And that is, I think, the exact response to the ongoing threat of Trumpism in our nation. Having said that, on July the 26th, I am pulling together a panel. Michael Avenatti is one of the panelists, but I asked our Congressmember Adam Schiff to also participate in the panel, but he is stuck in D.C. that day. However, he is sending Steve Madison, who is a formal federal prosecutor who is quite familiar with the prosecution of federal cases and impeachment, and he has agreed to join the panel, and we are waiting to hear who the representative is going to be from CHIRLA. CHIRLA is the organization, the Coalition for Humane Treatment of Immigrant Rights here in Los Angeles. So we intend on having a discussion about a lot of the federal issues that currently seem to be in the news, ranging from the Stormy Daniels lawsuit to the ongoing Mueller investigation to the detention centers and the separation of children from their families. And that will be a discussion I believe we're going to hold at Plummer Park on July the 26th, and everyone in the community is invited to participate to hear from these speakers about what they're doing and how they're doing it and where they are in the process. Finally, I want to say, if you hadn't heard already, the President has nominated Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. I guess if there was a lesser of great evils, he's the lesser, but he's no prize. Could have been worse, and that's what we're all saying. But I know that in the upcoming days, we'll all be focusing very intently on this nomination of Brett Kavanaugh. What I explained to a lot of gay men especially, but all LGBT people, is the right to privacy on which our LGBT rights are founded on are based on Roe versus Wade. And Roe versus Wade just isn't about abortion. It's about the fundamental right to privacy and making your own decisions. And a threat to Roe versus Wade is a threat to LGBT people broadly, and to contraception, and to birth control, and to sexual privacy decisions. So we should all be concerned about making sure that Roe versus Wade remains the law of the land. So with that, I'll now call upon our city manager for his report.
Well, I hope I'm not supposed to cheer anybody up after that. Just a couple of quick comments. First of all, in response to the comments from Councilmember Heilman and then Mayor Pro Tem D'Amico, the Sheriff's Department is making multiple deployments to Plummer Park, and I know today they had a number of calls and additional deployments to the park to deal with some of the homeless there. It's an issue we're trying to stay on top of, but it's a constant challenge. As for the liquor store that was mentioned, code compliance has reached out to them previously about selling to inebriated individuals. Obviously, we need to reach out to them again, so we'll follow up on that. Also related to public safety and homelessness, our LA County Sheriff MET team, the MET deputy and clinician have begun to work now here in the city, so that's going to be a big plus and a great resource for us. Also, as we're expanding services for Block by Block, the Ambassador Security Program throughout the city, we are launching a West Hollywood app called WeHo Everywhere. It's up live now. You can get it on Google Play or Apple iTunes Store. It is a tool and a resource for non-emergency issues. It could be related to homelessness, abandoned cars, abandoned furniture. It's available again at the store. I downloaded it today, and I'm going to actually play with it tomorrow. Public Works, construction updates. We're finishing up the installation of turn restrictions on San Vicente and Rosewood and La Cienega and Rosewood, and that will be finished tomorrow. After those restrictions are in place, staff will inform the Sheriff's Department, West Hollywood Residents Associations, and school in close proximity to that area that they can no longer make those turns. Pavement marking legends, works, and signs with speed bumps have started actually this week on the 8700 block of that street. Lastly, I want to thank the mayor for adjourning tonight's meeting in the name of Jim Duncan, our fellow employee. When we heard about his sudden death, it was Sunday, June 24th, we were all in shock. It's clearly a blow to the organization. Jim just had a certain quiet resolve. He was a calm intellect. He worked behind the scenes, keeping our very complicated infrastructure, our technology infrastructure, running and safe. He just played such a critical role here. I spent time at the service today. His family, his parents are devastated. It's such a tragic loss for them. And of course, for our other fellow employee, Claudia, and their young kids, it's just so tragic for them to lose their father. I want to thank all the employees who went to the service today. I believe there were over 50 current and past employees who were there, and the family really appreciated seeing everybody there providing support. I also want to point out to you that there was a number of employees who were at City Hall who wanted to be there, but needed to keep the organization running. We had a council meeting tonight. I know this has been a very difficult time for the city clerk division because they're directly impacted by this. So once again, thank you to the employees. Thank you to the city council for all of your support.
Thank you, Paul.
And Mayor, if I just may make a brief supplement to the city manager's report. Just wanted to respond to some of the comments that were made by members of the public regarding the referendum petitions that were being circulated regarding the Robertson Lane project. It's very difficult under California law to deal with falsehoods that are expressed by unscrupulous petition circulators when they are attempting to secure signatures. Oftentimes the circulators are paid by the signature, and they will say almost anything to get somebody to sign. And it is very difficult to prosecute them in any meaningful sort of a way. As you know, the City Council took two actions that were subject to referendum. One was the adoption of a resolution, and the other adoption of an ordinance. Both were subject to referendum petitions. The first referendum petition challenging the resolution adopted by the City Council was not timely filed by the proponents, and so it is now a dead letter. There are still approximately 2 weeks left for circulation of the other petition. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, that concludes our city manager, city attorney report. We'll now move to the passage of the consent calendar. The consent calendar is one motion where many routine items can be passed simultaneously under a general motion. May we first have the report from the city clerk on the fiscal impact on tonight's consent calendar.
Yes, the fiscal impact with the addition of items 4B and 5C is $19,334,903 in expenditures, $280,267 in potential revenue, and $0 in way fees.
Thank you, Yvonne. It's been moved by D'Amico, seconded by Horvath to pass the consent calendar. All those in favor indicate with an aye. Consent calendar passes unanimously. That takes us to our first public hearing of the evening, item 3A, which is the Transportation Demand Management Ordinance. Let me start by asking the city clerk if this matter was noticed as required by law.
Yes, as required by law.
All right, thank you, Yvonne. And we will now open the public hearing to consider all pertinent testimony and introduce on first reading an ordinance on the Transportation Demand Management Ordinance. And who is presenting? Bob? Okay.
Are there speakers on this?
Oh, are there any speakers on this item?
No, they're not.
There are no speakers, so maybe your report can be consistent with the fact that there are no speakers that wish to be heard on this.
We'll do our best.
You can just give us maybe a summation of what we're doing.
Sure. Just
Thank you,
waiting
Bob.
for the presentation to come on.
I'm prepared to move the item and close the public hearing.
All right. Any council member wish to have a report from our staff? Hearing none.
I don't want to report, but I have a couple of questions.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem, questions for staff.
I read this fairly closely, but I'm still a little confused about non-peak hour business start times And so some of that is businesses that, for example, bars that maybe have, 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. openings, and construction projects which might have 7 a.m. starts, and how that sort of figures into our transportation demand. So that non-peak hour start time for businesses. And then the second is that, so we all know this fact that 90% of our jobs are filled by people from outside of our city, and 90% of our residents leave to go to work. So I didn't really see that covered in here either, at least not that I could sort of. So maybe you can just talk about those two things and how we capture that in this TDM effort.
And Bob, before you answer, let me just tell the public, what we're doing is we're updating our Transportation Demand Management Ordinance to help manage congestion, reduce drive-alone trips, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions by requiring new development to provide physical improvements and incentives to create more travel options for employees, residents, and visitors. That's generally what we're doing. Bob.
Okay, great. To answer your question about the late-night employees, those who work at restaurants and bars, the TDM ordinance is really geared toward focusing on commute trips. So we're looking at surveying and focusing our efforts on reducing those trips that travel between the peak hours or peak periods in the morning and afternoon. So employees who work late night, those are not counted into the equation, if that answers your question.
So they're not counted in the equation, and we also don't try to get them to change their habits?
Well, we like everyone to change their habits, but we understand that, at that hour of the day or night, using transit or biking may not be something that's feasible. So we understand that there are limitations to alternative travel at that time. So when we do our assessment, it's focusing on peak hour during commuting times.
And those are commutes that are coming to West Hollywood to work and leaving West Hollywood, not commutes that are leaving West Hollywood to work and returning to West Hollywood to home. Is that right?
I'm sorry, say again?
So our jobs housing balance is perfect. Unfortunately, everyone has to leave to go to work, and everyone comes here to work the jobs we have.
Exactly, and obviously there are other types of commute, the pass-through traffic that happens, and we want to focus on things that we can control. So folks who are leaving obviously need to go to work. They might be going to working in another city that has a TDM ordinance that they must also follow. So there's a balance going on here. It's a countywide effort. 88 cities within the region has to participate in this. So it's just one of our, we're just doing our part, I guess. For those who are coming into work here, obviously we have more control through this ordinance. We can require incentives that employers can offer their employees.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. City Manager Aravello.
It's on, but I can't turn it off, so I don't need to speak.
Okay, Councilmember Horvath.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to mention that the citywide traffic study that the council requested is expected to be completed in September of this year, so that information can help inform this process as we move forward with updating the TDM. It's my understanding that we're on a timeline with this process. That's why we're having this conversation tonight. But I do know that members of the business community and our chamber in particular raised some concerns about where we are. And so I wanted to, I know that this effort is intended to proactively engage our community in managing our traffic and transportation. And it's more about getting people engaged. It's not about being a punitive process. And so I know, despite saying that and despite staff communicating that, I do know that that continues to be a concern, particularly in our business community. So I wanted to throw out for consideration to my colleagues, sort of phasing in this process, that the recommendation from staff is to focus initially on new development projects of a certain size and scale for commercial development and of 10 units for residential, to focus exclusively on those for this first phase, while also surveying the existing businesses and then coming back to council in a year after the surveying and the marketing have been done with existing businesses, and sort of seeing where we're at with that information before we start incorporating other existing businesses and then residences into this process. So that way we have a slowed down approach. People have the opportunity to actually be engaged, which is the goal of this effort, and understand and make sure that they know what they're participating in, because I think that there are still some lingering questions, which is what's creating the concern out in the community. And I spoke with staff about this earlier today, so.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember Meister.
Yeah, I have some questions. Was the previous TDM ordinance being followed or just not tracked?
The latter. So we do require new developments to submit a TDM plan. However, the monitoring and the follow-up hasn't been done in a way that we would like to. So with this new ordinance, proposed ordinance, and also the monitoring piece of it has also been recommended, and we will be obviously stepping up in monitoring and enforcing this.
So we don't know if the old TDM ordinance was actually, it could have been fine. It could have been, it might have been successful, and we just don't know. Is that right?
That's correct. What the ordinance that's before you tonight has been modified. So in a way, it's kind of like the old TDM ordinance in a way. The existing ordinance is kind of vague on the strategies. It just says you should consider promoting walking, biking, transit. It doesn't give you the strategies to help you formulate the plan. So what we're proposing with the menu of items is more information, more tools for employers to use to help them develop their plan and follow through.
So you're saying that this ordinance would only apply to new development. So what happens to all the businesses that were on the old TDM plan?
So for development projects and businesses that had a TDM plan that was in play, they would be required to continue to follow that plan. A lot didn't. A lot of the kind of existing businesses that fell under that existing ordinance didn't have a plan, nor were they monitored. So moving forward, we really are targeting those new developments. So for, let's say, a hotel project that has a TDM program in place, we would continue to work with them and monitor them, but we would also give them an opportunity to update that plan, which wasn't feasible before under the existing regulation.
Okay, and I guess I just have concerns about this revised ordinance and the number of employees that you're looking at. You're looking at the threshold is 10 employees, or?
That's correct. So any employer with 10 or more employees would be required to provide two things, which they are already required to do under the existing ordinance. And that would be provide on-site transportation information, which is basically like marketing for alternative transportation, providing information about bus routes, et cetera. And then they would also be required to participate in the city's survey. Previously, they were required to do their own survey of their employees. Now we will have a survey that all entities that participate in the survey would all conduct, and the city would be able to collect additional data in that way.
Would the survey apply to all businesses? Or
All
just
businesses
the
with 10 or more employees.
Okay, and then what about the residential component of this new ordinance?
So if the residential component would be that any brand-new building with 10 or more units would be required to submit a TDM plan, and they'd be required to pick from the strategies and implement strategies that are either operational or one-time kind of constructed physical improvements. They do not have an AVR goal, and they would not be required to participate in the survey. They would be required the on-site marketing.
But aren't you concerned that that could affect rents?
I mean, certainly anything that changes the way that a developer develops their property could impact rents, but I think, conversely looking at it, it may impact rents, but it'll also potentially provide amenities in those buildings. So for the physical improvements, like a bike room, that's now a new amenity for that building.
Yeah, but that can be conditioned anyway, right? I mean, we're conditioning electric vehicle, the ability to have electric vehicles, that's being conditioned in on new projects, right?
Right, and so that's actually a great example, because in the case where they're required to provide the ability to have electric vehicles, if you then take another step and have priority parking for electric vehicles and actually put the chargers in, they would actually be they'd be able to kind of double dip for our existing requirement and the TDM ordinance. So a lot of these things are being put into play already, and developers are putting them in because people want them. And this is just a way for us to help track that and encourage people to do that, and also give them kind of a list of different strategies that they can utilize to help encourage people not to drive.
Okay, so the TDM ordinance, as far as the business goes, is based on number of employees and the fact that it's new development, and also square footage, I think, is also one of the thresholds. Is that right?
Right. For new commercial and mixed-use projects, there's a 5,000 square foot of commercial floor area threshold to be required to do a TDM plan.
But the type of business is not. I mean, the type of business is not being considered, whether it's a restaurant versus an office.
Right, so it would be up to the developer to decide, working with the city staff, to determine what strategies are appropriate for that type of development. And that's where we wanted to keep it open-ended, to let people determine what's best for them. But specifically a business that exists already, that's 10 or more employees, all they'll be required to do is that marketing and survey.
And I also
They
want
will
to
not be required to implement new strategies.
I also want to make it clear that we already require new construction projects to do TDM required construction issues already. So we're not changing that. We're changing some ways and choices they have about addressing these issues. But large commercial projects are already doing these TDM construction issues like bicycle parking and shower facilities and that type of thing, without reference to the type of tenants that might move into the building. So that's already something we do.
Right, okay.
Mayor Pro Tem?
So back to Councilmember Meister's initial question. Now, assuming we pass this, will there be staff and staff time in place to do the ongoing monitoring and follow-up that maybe didn't happen in the way we would have liked with the original plan? Is that baked into this, or baked into the staffing plan for the long-term, long-range planning?
It's baked into this. In fact, we talked to a potential vendor today that has new technologies, a cloud-based system with apps to actually monitor and help with the reporting. So it's something that we're looking into. There are new updated tools for us that we didn't have back in 1993 when the original TDM ordinance was passed. So there's a lot of new things that we can incorporate as far as monitoring and reporting.
Councilmember Heilman.
Just quickly, it sounds like for a lot of the new developments that are larger, they're already going to be in compliance with the TDM requirements because they're going to be making physical improvements as part of the development. So we need to have this ordinance in place because it's a countywide initiative, and we said we would be on board with it. But it doesn't seem like for new development it's going to result in significant changes since we've been imposing these kind of requirements. From what you said earlier, it sounds like we are creating a more flexible menu of potential ways for them to solve the transportation issues of the new development. For existing businesses asking them to market bus riding, market the fact that there's a bike share program. That doesn't seem to be an onerous requirement. And since we're doing the survey of their employees, again, it doesn't seem like that's going to be overly burdensome. I have to fill out one of those surveys at multiple employers, and it's annoying to do it, but it takes 5 minutes, and it isn't really detracting from my job or adding an additional requirement on the business.
Is there a motion to introduce this item on first reading? Moved by Mayor Pro Tem D'Amico. Is there a second? Seconded by Heilman. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate with an aye. Matter passes 4-1, noting Meister's nay vote.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will now move to, let's see, item 3B has been continued to a date uncertain. Moves us to item 3C, which is amendments to the city's master fee resolution regarding shared mobility devices, also known as scooters. This item will be heard in conjunction with legislative item 6B, as indicated earlier this evening. Let me start by asking the city clerk if this matter was noticed as required by law.
Yes, as required by law.
All right, thank you very much. Appears that we have about 7 or 8 speakers on this particular item and the additional item, but before we get to the speakers, why don't we get an initial report from staff? Who is presenting tonight?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Tara Warden. I'm an assistant planner in the Long Range Planning Team. And, one moment. So the items before you tonight are in regards to prohibiting shared on-demand personal mobility devices. This item has been combined with the fee structure that's been established by code compliance, items 3C and 6B. So we're going to actually go to 6B first and then switch to 3C. As you know, this matter has increasingly become an issue in the city, receiving both praise and ire from the public. At the June 18th council meeting, staff recommended that council approve a ban of unpermitted devices coupled with a pilot program to temporarily permit operators. Council had concerns regarding these recommendations and voted 4-1 in favor of an outright ban of these devices. The ordinance language that council voted on referenced a temporary permit program. However, council did not approve the pilot program. So therefore, we're returning tonight with a revised ordinance. So this is the first reading of this. The revised ordinance removes reference from the temporary permit that was not approved by council, and the fee structure items establishes fees for the devices that violate this ban. The ordinance language establishes that it's unlawful to provide, place, or offer for use a shared on-demand personal mobility device or an operator to operate such a device. And please note, there was a memorandum attached to this item that was distributed last Friday that issued additional language to further clarify such operations, that they're prohibited in a specific location, in any street or public right-of-way or other public place within the city in which the public has the right of travel. And then Dan Mick the co-compliance supervisor, will review the fee structures associated with this.
The fee structures the fees that are being considered tonight is just adding the new chapter 11.30. Is that what it is? Yes, 11.32, Schedule B of the administrative citation fee schedule that just sets fines for violations of this ordinance. First offense would be $200 plus a $50 administrative fee, and it goes up progressively for a second and third to $400, then $800 plus a $50 administrative fee. We're also asking council to approve a $40 per unit impound fee. And this fee is to help offset the time involved with staff picking up the scooters, inventorying them, photographing them, storing them, contacting the scooter companies, et cetera, et cetera.
Dan, are those fees assessed against the scooter company or the rider of the scooter?
It would actually be whoever the violator is. I would imagine that that would largely, overwhelmingly be the scooter companies themselves. But if we found some rogue operator or rogue person doing something that would violate this, we could go after that individual. But by and large, it should be going after the scooter companies. But our first priority is going to be to reach out and try to work with the scooter companies themselves, try to establish that relationship, get them to work with us. Where if we find scooters are being left out in the public right-of-way, we'll reach out to them, contact them, inform them of what we're seeing, where we're seeing them at. And I believe the scooter companies that we have spoken with have said it's generally about a 2 to 3 hour turnaround time from when we contact them to them coming into the city, collecting them and removing them to someplace that is okay.
Mayor Duran, Jeff Albo, Code Compliance Manager. In essence, yes, we would be issuing the citations to the companies that put them on the sidewalk.
Okay.
We would not go after an individual rider, no.
Not the individual rider on the scooter, it's the company.
No.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions for staff before we go to the public?
Yeah, I have a couple.
Mayor Pro Tem?
So when we ticket a rental car that somebody has parked on one of our streets, that ticket is passed on to the person who rented the car. There's nothing that prohibits these companies from passing on that fee to the rider. Is that right?
I'm not sure how that, we have a license for rental car companies if they park
No,
on
no,
the
it's not
street?
about whether we have
See,
licenses.
the parking citation for the driver?
Yeah, it
Okay,
goes
I see
to
what
the
you're saying.
to the person who rented the car, not the rental car company.
Correct, they would kick it down to the person renting the car.
So if somebody rides one of these into our city and gets off at the yogurt stop and leaves it there, and we issue a fine, they would pass it on to the rider, who probably, when they used their app, it said, "Don't ride this in West Hollywood," but they did anyway.
We would be going after the company that that puts them out on the sidewalk if.
No,
if
not,
somebody-
not when they put them out on the
I
sidewalk.
get that.
When
I
they
get that.
ride them into town.
If a person rides it into town, we want to work with them to where they cut it off or they do not make it available for rent again, and then we give them a call to pick it up. If they made the scooter available for rent again, once it's in the city, then that's a violation, we would cite the company. So if somebody drove it into the
So,
city.
but they could pass that on to the renter.
That would be a business model for them, yes.
Yeah, I'm just, that's my concern is we're setting up a complicated thing, because we're not going to put signs at our borders that say you can't ride your scooter past this point, right?
No, not that I know of, no.
But we put signs where it says you can't park your car because it's permit parking.
Correct.
Okay.
If I could just clarify one more point.
Yeah,
Scooter
okay.
companies do have the ability to geocode areas in the app where, in fact, some of them already do this in other parts of the region, where it's indicated that you're not supposed to ride the scooter. They can also have pop-up notifications. It would be up to that individual operator, of course, and their business model for how they would want to notify customers, but it is possible for them to embed those mechanisms.
Councilmember Meister.
Yeah, so it's not illegal to ride a scooter in West Hollywood?
No.
It's
No, it's
illegal
illegal
to be operating a scooter business,
Correct.
basically, out of West Hollywood?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff before we go to the public?
Yeah, I have a question.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Can you tell me what the difference is?
Between a person riding a scooter in and somebody, a company having one available for rent, I'll let Tara take this one.
Thanks.
It would essentially be, in practice, illegal for them to park within the boundaries of the city. So we've been in sort of preliminary conversations with some scooter companies to determine if they have the ability to do that, to not allow scooters to be parked within the city boundaries. And that is a function that they're able to do, but it's just a matter of building a relationship with us.
I'm really listening as closely as I can, but if somebody gets on a scooter 10 feet south of Santa Monica Boulevard on La Cienega, that's in Los Angeles, and they ride that scooter to Basics and they get off it, haven't they parked it?
They can park it, but it would be essentially, it wouldn't be able to lock itself. It would be temporarily unlocked for 5 minutes. So the user would get charged money that they're not using the actual device, and then it would automatically lock. And then the company would be alerted that the device is in a no ride or no park zone. Then they would have the opportunity to come pick that device up.
But if the company keeps it available for rental from another person, that is then a violation of our ordinance.
I see. So the person who got off it doesn't get a ticket?
No.
No.
And the company has 2 hours to get rid of it?
Correct.
Or so, or 3.
Right.
And so, like we've seen now, there will be these scooters around town, and now we're setting up a situation in which people are going to write to us and say, I saw a scooter in front of the gym, can you get rid of it, please? Because that almost hit me, right? So
That's
now we
that's
have to...
happening now as it is.
Yeah.
So this at least gives
You
us an
aren't kidding.
opportunity to address it.
And so we'll have enough code enforcement staff with cars with big trunks to go pick them up?
If they're left past the time, yes, absolutely.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're not setting up an unrealizable expectation for this policy, because it's going to pass, I can count. But it seems like we're not really, sort of like, it feels like Airbnb all over again. We're definitely not going to have it, and then in 6 months you're going to be sitting here because we're going to have scooters everywhere.
We intend to work with the companies so that the ones that aren't being used are picked up quickly. If not picked up by the end of the day, it becomes a violation then.
So now it's the end of the day?
No, like I said, we would contact them to come pick them up, but if they weren't picked up by the end of the day, it's a definite violation. The next morning, we'd be able to issue a citation and impound them.
We have a lot of work to do around that, it's pretty clear. I mean, it's going to be complicated, because we're not asking for more staff, right? So the work that you all are doing is now covering 2 square miles of scooter drops.
Well, we don't catch every leaf blower, but we do get as many as we can.
Don't I know that too?
Okay, so
Yes.
we will address it as best we can, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for staff before we go to the public? Councilmember Meister?
I mean, basically what this does is it keeps, or it basically tells the companies, you can't dump 10 bikes on the corner of Santa Monica and La Cienega and leave 10 bikes there. 10 scooters there. Okay. In LA, but not in West Hollywood.
All right, I think we're ready to go to the public. Let's start with Amanda Goodwin, and then we'll go to Keegan Allen and Josh Kerpies. Amanda?
Amanda Goodwin, West Hollywood. Oh boy, Jeff, he can't retire soon enough, because I'm going to be calling code and violations constantly. Hey, I was just walking home from Unplugged, and seriously, it was in the middle of the sidewalk. I had to pick it up and move it, and it makes some weird beep. It's happened 3 times. Yesterday I was walking down Santa Monica. There was 2 guys on limes that were going like 15 miles an hour down the sidewalk. I tried to take a video. One was in the bike lane. A sheriff came by. He was coming out of the sheriff's department. He said to him on his loudspeaker, "Get on the sidewalk." I mean, seriously, they're going 15 miles an hour down pedestrian sidewalks. And these, how this company operates is that they have people that do it. They have trucks and stuff that go out. You can volunteer. It's another job like Lyft or Uber, that you can go volunteer to go pick up these scooters. And then people hang on to them in their garages because they get paid more when they're not there. So now we're going to have to wait 3 hours for somebody to come get a scooter out of the middle of the sidewalk on West Knoll or on Huntley or wherever, or I'm walking down Melrose and I have to dodge a posse of scooter riders that people can't even ride these things. They're not wearing helmets. They're not safe. There's really no ordinance. Why isn't there a docking station for them? Why don't they have... We're doing it with Uber, we're doing it with Lyft. How come they can just drive to their house and leave it in the middle of the sidewalk or on the parkway? It's going to be a problem. I know they're trying to solve a situation so people go around, but my friends are like, yay, now I can get drunk and I can get on a scooter and go home. Hey, you want me to come meet you at St. Felix? I'll just get on a scooter and drive home afterwards. So now we have people drunk on these things. So I'm not really knows what the solution is, but what I heard sounds a little dubious. So I would strongly urge not to pass this until there really is a resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Keegan Allen, to be followed by Josh Kerpies, followed by Dylan Johnson.
Hey everyone, first time speaking. Mr. Mayor and City Council members, it's a pleasure to see the people that I voted for. in person. First off, I'm in no way affiliated with any of these apps or companies, but I've been a resident of West Hollywood for 31 years. I've watched the city change and grow in extraordinary ways. And recently, many of my neighbors and myself have discovered that so many new small businesses, recreational areas, community functions, thanks to these electric on-demand scooter services. And I like to think that I am in the company of environmentally friendly vision of our future together. I think it's a huge missed opportunity for West Hollywood, one of the most liberal, progressive, and environmentally friendly areas in Los Angeles, not to embrace this as a means of boosting local businesses and at the same time keeping traffic down. I think this could be a huge win. And sometimes I don't leave my apartment, I just get Postmates because it's too stressful to go out and explore on foot because there might be not somewhere to park my car, or if I want to go down the street, get groceries or dinner with friends, I get caught in the susurrus of traffic. And also this isn't New York where walking is easy. There are hills, Sweetser or Los Cienega can be a very traumatic experience if you're not prepared for it. But rather than the on-demand scooting opens up possibilities of utilizing the area without the worries of when you have to go back. You just leave it in a safe spot for the next person to pick up. And on the way over, I saw so many people on scooters, smiling, exploring the community. This is the future that I want to be a part of, seeing the shops face to face instead of a quick blur pass by in traffic and parking. Please see the positive of the beatific reality that could be the possibility of these on-demand methods of transportation with no emissions to get a cup of coffee, lunch with friends, or to go to and from work for free. Pretty much, people will be people, but trying to regulate this is only going to cripple the progress and clean transportation to create this messy and confusing no man's land between Los Angeles County and West Hollywood. Thank you.
So Josh Kerpes, Dylan Johnson, J.P. Dupree.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Josh Kerpes. I had intended to attend the last meeting when you discussed this item. I had supported the staff's recommendation for a pilot program that place restrictions on their use, set clear expectations for operators of these companies, and required the operators to share usage data with the city. I didn't agree with placing the limited number, or the limit on the number of scooters that could be distributed throughout the city. I figured that's what the pilot program was for, and we could figure that data out from that data that would be gathered during the pilot program. I was informed after the meeting that you decided in a different direction and to outright ban them. I was a little bit shocked, so I went home and I watched the meeting over again to find out exactly what the reasoning might be. And actually, all that stood out in that meeting was scooters do not replace car trips. That was said by a couple different members of the City Council, and I'm here to tell you that that is absolutely false. That I am a living example that I have only a few times that have used the scooter in place of an Uber or Lyft. Oftentimes, my use of the scooter, I don't have a car. So for someone to stand up here and say, I don't have a car, but using a scooter replaces a car trip, you have to think about that for a minute. There are trips that I have used a scooter over an Uber where I would have normally used an Uber and Lyft, and it's actually saved me some time because of traffic. I regularly take 2 to 3 modes of transportation throughout my day. That's usually bike share, buses, Uber and Lyft. Now I've added a scooter to that. For someone who hasn't had a car for 2 years, I may not be replacing a whole lot of car trips with scooters, but I can tell you it helps me every single day get around and go one more day without a car by having these scooters available. I do believe helmets, although I think there's some hypocrisy in the law about the use of helmets, but I will follow the laws about using helmets and not parking on the sidewalks that block, and hope you'll reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you. Dylan Johnson, J.P. Dupree, to be followed by Morton Winther.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Thank you so much for taking the time and letting me address you tonight on this item. My name is Dylan Johnson, and I am here on behalf of the company Lime, who's one of the purveyor of these scooters. And so I just wanted to come tonight to kind of express a little bit of what's also been echoed. You know, we do understand as a company that there are some very real concerns that the council brought up at the last meeting. We understand those, but we also feel that there is a real benefit that these scooters can offer to the city, and I think that has been borne out in some of the data. I do think that it's been shown that these do, like the gentleman said, kind of replace car trips. It has been shown to go to different transportation hubs in other markets that we have been in. And so I really encourage the council not to just move forward with an outright ban tonight. As I'm sure you're aware, the city of Los Angeles is working on regulations and will likely in August bring those forward and have a permitting process in place. City of Culver City tonight is hearing an agreement with one of the companies and is going to be establishing a permitting system. The city of Santa Monica has already moved forward with the permitting system. And so not to say that that means, that you have to do anything because the other cities are, but, it is coming to the region. And with that, we're able to work with those cities, work with the city staff to implement a system that works for those cities and really address some of the issues that they have, right? As a company, if we come in, we're able to work with city staff and develop regulations that make sense for, in this case it would be West Hollywood. And also, there is some great data that we get, as mentioned, with where writers are writing these and where the kind of big thoroughfares are, and so that can kind of help inform city planning in terms of transportation and infrastructure around that. And so, if we're working with the cities and have a pilot program, and if you choose to move forward with the regulations after that pilot program, that's a benefit that these companies can bring, and vendors can be more responsive to that. So while I do completely understand the concerns, and we are eager to work with city around those, I do encourage you to take another look at potentially implementing a pilot program and seeing how that goes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. J.P. Dupre, to be followed by Morton Winther, to be followed by Justin Easter.
Thank you, Council. Longtime listener, first-time caller. J.P. Dupre. I've lived in West Hollywood, thankfully, for the last 8 years. I love it here. Thank you for all the work you do for the city. I'm a bicycle commuter. I don't have a car, and I commute 10 miles each way to Santa Monica every day. And obviously, over the last few months, there's been a lot of activity with scooters in that area, so I have a particular vantage point to what I've seen over time there, as well as what I'm starting to see here, and it's very concerning. I obviously am a green commuter. I'm not opposed to having alternatives to vehicles. In fact, I find more people who aren't in cars on the road only makes it easier for the rest of us in terms of visibility. However, these scooter share companies are just outsourcing their accountability to customers who have already shown they won't follow the guidelines they're supposedly instituting themselves. I've also seen some very disingenuous efforts in photographs of these scooter share companies positioning their scooters around and obstructing bike racks. That's not promoting green transportation. That's just wanting their way over, already proven methods within our city with the bike share program itself. I'm very happy to see that the staff is talking about incorporating some fines as well as the geolocating. I think that's a no-brainer way to just stop it right there at our city steps. I also, would love to see us incentivize these companies in the event that down the line we release the ban and we do start permitting on a select basis once the greater Los Angeles area and these companies have sorted out the kinks on the whole. Let's work with these companies to have them work with us. And if we do lift this ban eventually at some point, have it be a merit-based permit system. So it's, working with us so that maybe one day we work with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Morton Winther, to be followed by Justin Easter, followed by Arash Hale.
Hello. Just a second. My name is Morten Winther. I'm not a native English speaker, so I hope you bear with me. I'm a resident of West Hollywood, and just to be clear, I'm not in business with the electric scooter companies, but I am a huge supporter of the electric scooters. I moved to this great country permanently from my native Copenhagen, Denmark, about a year ago. And there are so many great things to say about this great city, but one thing really makes you wonder, why is the infrastructure and traffic so extremely bad? In Europe, the cities are thousands of years old, and the roads are like spaghetti, basically. This makes for a lot of problems. Here in America, you have younger cities, and the great thing is that someone really used their heads when they built these cities. So you have roads like chessboards, which has so many benefits for infrastructure. So it makes you wonder why traffic is so extremely bad here. And I think it's because everybody wants a car and has a car, but even worse, everybody thinks that they need a car. I understand that growing up in a city like this can make it hard for one to envision how things could be really different. But let me know, And let me tell you that they really can be a lot different. I come from a city where most people don't really need a car, and I don't have a car. I've never had a car. My brother don't have a car. And most of my friends don't have a car. The key thing is to make it attractive to go by bike or by the electric scooters. Many places in Europe, there's been bicycle highways made. Highways where you can just go directly from point A to point B with no intersections, so you don't need to stop. Here in LA, you have a unique opportunity to do that. The other day, I accidentally ended up in a back alley. I don't even know why you have these back alley things, but you can just go and not stop. I think you can make these bicycle highways, these places. Oh, sorry. Okay. Don't ban the bicycles and scooters.
Thank you, Mr. Winter. Justin Easter, to be followed by Arash Hale.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. This is my first time ever speaking, and it's because I'm very passionate about these scooters. I was in Amsterdam in the fall, and I came back to LA, and I was depressed. And I was depressed because I can't go around my city easily. I can't find parking. Driving down Santa Monica Boulevard during rush hour is the worst experience ever. But you know what? Now, because of these scooters, rush hour traffic doesn't exist. I was on Santa Monica Boulevard on this scooter, and I was passing cars like crazy. I got home probably 10 minutes faster than I would have if I was driving. I can use these scooters to get to kickball practice, where I don't have to find a parking spot, which takes probably 10 minutes sometimes, maybe even longer. Texting and driving, it's something I see probably in 50% of every car I pass by. You can't text and scooter, trust me. I can't even take off one hand. So you know what? We're saving lives with these things. Also, it's amazing to see people just traveling around their city just to be outside. And also, I can just go to CVS on this scooter. It's just amazing that I don't have to get in this car, get stuck in traffic just to go get something and throw it in my backpack. I do agree we need laws and we need infrastructure. In Amsterdam, it was just so amazing how people were just traveling around this city so easily and comfortably. I don't feel comfortable in West Hollywood on a bike or a scooter. That's why I've never touched those bikes. I've thought about it, but I won't. I feel a lot more in control on these scooters. I do. I feel like I have a lot more control. I think my challenge to West Hollywood is, can we build an infrastructure for these scooters? Because the future, we all know the future of transportation is autonomous cars. Highways and streets are going to be changing. We're going to have less lanes. So this is our opportunity to open up the future and allow people to be transported way easier and way safer and way faster. Thank you.
Thank you. Arash Hale. This is our last speaker. If anybody else wishes to speak, be sure to submit a speaker's slip.
Yeah, y'all have the job. I'm not even from West Hollywood. I live in Hollywood, but I scooted 25 minutes to get here to make a point. Really, here's another fun fact. My friend and I, we were at the In-N-Out. I was like, yo, I'm gonna Lime it home. She gonna Uber it home. I even got her the Uber to make this point. Rush hour traffic, I got home close to Solar de Cahuenga 5 minutes before they did. So there's something to be said about the practicality of using these scooters. But let me tell you, with what I just saw with this adopted or the amended thing y'all are working on, it sounds like it's just setting yourself up for crazy complications. And it seems a lot easier to keep things as they're going, because when you introduce new technology somewhere, it's gonna be disruptive to a place. And it's gonna take time for people to adapt to what's going on. And it's gonna take an adjustment of laws and whatnot to figure out what's the best way to make this work for everybody involved. But if you add a fee structure to this, it will ultimately get passed down to us as the consumer or the rider. But it's essentially criminalizing riding a scooter in West Hollywood. And what the young lady was saying earlier about no Airbnbs, it could set up a precedent for other cities to do that. And most other cities in Los Angeles are progressively for these scooters and are just figuring out what the guidelines are gonna be. So, highly hopeful and highly suggest that you don't add a fee structure and figure it out with Lime and Bird and any other rideshare companies to figure out what's a good way to make this work for everybody involved. Even if it's adopting rules, I'll put on helmets and make sure it's parked all the way on the edge of the street so it doesn't get in nobody's way. But it's just common sense riding. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Carl Hansen.
Good evening, Mayor Duran and council members. I'm Carl Hansen, Government Affairs Director for Bird. First, wanted to say, thank you for considering this tonight. Shareable electric scooters are an exciting new technology that we really believe can help get people out of cars for the 40% of trips that are less than 2 miles. We think this is an incredibly important problem. Cars kill close to 40,000 people in the United States every year. And are literally threatening the future of our planet. And the better we can address this first mile, last mile problem, I think the better for all of us. Obviously, as a new technology and shifting modes is going to raise some questions. And we think the best way to get to those answers is through a pilot that's shaped by community input and shaped by shared data. And we really want to be a part of that discussion with you. The rest of the LA region is adopting pilot programs now. Santa Monica just adopted what we consider a really progressive policy. And we would hate for West Hollywood to be a dark spot there. We want you to be part of the data that helps us understand how this region gets out of cars. We want to be part of the mode shift. We want to be part of the safety messaging. We think and understand the safety concerns that people raise tonight. Those are real serious issues, and we want to be thoughtful about how to solve those. We're committed to using technology to change that. And I think working with companies like us, like Lime and others, is a much better way than having to deal with this on a case-by-case basis as the cost of private ownership of these vehicles continues to drop. You reach out to us and we can send out an alert to all of our members right away. Whereas, the cost of these one-wheeled weird ride things people are taking around now, the electric skateboards, electric bikes, this is all changing. There's a revolution in personal transit that's happening. And we'd like you to be a part of that. We'd like to be a part of that discussion. We'd like to connect with members of the community, residents and the business members, city staff and others to really understand this. And hope you'll consider that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question for Mr. Hansen.
Mr. Hansen, I have a question.
Yes.
So I appreciate you coming here and you say you want to partner with us. Why did you put your scooters in the city before you had a partnership?
We did not, actually. We don't even drop within 3 blocks of the city of West Hollywood, but they are coming in. We are in the surrounding area.
We've seen a photograph of a truck dropping off Bird scooters in the city of West Hollywood.
I will be happy to give you my personal cell phone. That is not supposed to be happening in the city of West Hollywood. That could be a mechanic or a charger that's dropping outside of the zone. So it's not impossible for someone to do that, but that's absolutely not our policy, and that's not regular practice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. I believe that's all the public comments we have tonight. We'll now begin council discussion and deliberation. Who wishes to begin? Mayor Pro Tem D'Amico.
I just want to say thank you all for coming. I think I've been here 7 years. This is the first time this many people under 35 have shown up for anything. So, this is really a revolution of youth. And I'm hoping that our city is not saying to young people, because that would be the wrong message to be sending to young people across this region. Because West Hollywood, we need young people to come here. And I get excited when I see people riding these scooters. Near misses and people crashing, that's unfortunate and that should not be happening. So I just want to be 1,000% clear about this ordinance, and something that I know I wrote to Dan about and then to Oscar, and it would be something that maybe we could consider as a halfway point, which is, or not even a halfway point, a tenth of the waypoint, which is that these businesses could partner with other businesses in our city and they could drop off scooters on private property. For example, a hotel could have 5 or 6 scooters perhaps for its hotel residents, a Starbucks that had some private space in front of its business could perhaps do that. And we could limit the number that they could drop off, but they wouldn't be dropping them off on public property. I don't know where this goes, but I just want to write for the record, I want young people to continue to think of West Hollywood as a place that actually exists, and I don't want this to be a dark spot in the way that you think about our city. Many of us came to this city as young, poor urban professionals who graduated from college and wanted to invent our lives here. Others, came as attorneys and had six-figure jobs and never knew West Hollywood as a place that was for young people where you could have a good time. And so it breaks my heart to think that our city is turning our back on young people in this way at this very exciting time. So I'm going to step out of this conversation because my colleagues have had very strong opinions about it, and I was outvoted 4-1 last time, so they know where I stand. If they want to allow this to happen, I'm happy to join them in doing it.
Councilmember Meister.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just want to confirm again, if someone owns their own scooter, they are allowed to ride their scooter, and as long as they park it safely and drive safely and don't drive on the sidewalks, it is legal to have your own scooter. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, and if a hotel wanted to have their own scooters to rent out to their, or to give, or whatever, to their hotel guests, would that be allowed?
I don't believe so. I believe the way the ordinance is written, it actually would preclude hotels from running effectively a scooter sharing operation for their guests only.
Okay. So I still feel the same way that I think actually one of the speakers nailed it by saying about talking about infrastructure. I don't think that West Hollywood has the infrastructure for these scooters at this time, and I would challenge staff to look into building the infrastructure, but until that happens, I don't think it is safe for our residents or our visitors at this point. Thank you.
There'll be no shouting out during the meeting. We've very patiently listened to each of you. Please allow us our deliberation. Anybody else wish to speak? Councilmember Horvath.
Thank you, Mayor. I believed that the ordinance that we passed the last time, which was dependent upon a permit, was the direction I wanted to go explicitly for the reason that you just articulated. I don't think that the city should be in the business of working with these scooters at this time, but I have no problem with these companies, the operators working with private business in the city to have somebody who is held accountable for these scooters. I don't think that the city needs to be sharing its public right of way, but I am certainly open to having a conversation, open to the possibility of businesses in the city, whether they be hotels or other businesses, having scooters on their property. And so if this ordinance prevents that relationship from happening, that's not something that I support. I do think, though, that we have what we've seen is some of these companies repeatedly dropping scooters off in the city, and we can tell the difference between when several are staged standing up versus somebody left it in the parkway. I'm fine with developing a relationship with the scooter companies to come pick them up when somebody has left one in the city, but I am not comfortable continuing to allow these companies to stage them in the public right of way. I think if they're going to try to operate in the city, they need to find a business that wants, or a residence. Perhaps there are residences that want to provide these in their buildings. But I think that there needs to be somebody in the community who is responsible for them that we can communicate with in order for them to operate within the city. That's something that I'm much more comfortable with than what was presented to us last time. And I felt like what we passed last time created the possibility for those relationships to occur. And I think that's the direction that I would like to go, because it allows us to see whether there is actual community interest to allow these things to happen. And if so, we can then collect data and do all of the things that people say they want to do with a pilot program, but then there's somebody else who's responsible for it.
Thank you. Councilmember Heilman.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight and speaking on this item. Clearly, there are a number of people, and we heard from them tonight, who feel very passionately about the scooters, who view this as an opportunity for them to get around the city, who view this as a way of avoiding vehicle trips. But we've also heard from other people who feel very threatened by these scooters. And I think Amanda expressed that view earlier. For a number of our residents, particularly those who have mobility impairments, who are walking, who are seniors, these kind of scooters, when they're operated at significant speed on a sidewalk, pose a very real threat to people. I've observed it myself when just yesterday, I was walking to Gelson's from City Hall. I saw one of these scooters left in the middle of the sidewalk, blocking the sidewalk. And there was actually somebody who was blind walking to Gelson's who would have collided with it had I not moved it out of the pedestrian right-of-way. So one of the challenges we have here are some of the operators of these scooters are not operating them in a responsible way. They are operating them in a way that endangers other members of the public, that endanger themselves. And that's part of the problem I have. I do want to say that I came to West Hollywood as a young person. I don't know if that was a dig against me because I am an attorney. I did not come here as a six-figure attorney. I came here as a 23-year-old law student. And I like walking, and I like running on the sidewalk, and I like being able to explore the businesses, as one of the speakers said. And I like being able to do that without running the risk that somebody on a scooter is going to run into me. And I think we probably have all seen, and I'm sure some of the scooter operators would acknowledge this, there are people out there who are using these in a dangerous manner. The problem I have with the companies, I really have to say publicly, I resent businesses who think they can use the public right-of-way for their business, come in knowing that they don't have a relationship with the city, dump these scooters on our sidewalks, and then after the fact say, oh, see, these are scooters, everyone loves them, you should work with us. Well, it's not how you work with people. If you want to work with people, you come to them in advance and say, we'd like to operate in your city. Can we work with you to come up with a program that makes sense? You don't operate the way you have done it, and then after the fact, try to make a deal with the city. My concern is that, and I do understand the desire, and I've been to Copenhagen and I've been to Amsterdam, and they have amazing infrastructure for bikes, and it's an amazing mode of transit for people. But I'm concerned that the users that we've seen in West Hollywood are at this point not ready to abide by the rules. I'm okay with exploring how we could allow these in the future. But at this point, until we have regulations in place, until we have a comprehensive program that focuses on the safety of other people on the sidewalks and on the street, and the safety of the users, I'm not ready to move forward with that. And so I'd like our staff to look at that, but I don't want to do a pilot program or anything else until we have those kind of safety regulations in place for everyone.
Thank you. I guess I'll just add to the discussion that we are continuing to have about this. I've been contacted by people with very strong opinions on both sides of the issue. Just don't think West Hollywood's ready to do it yet. I know that other cities that are very progressive, like San Francisco and Santa Monica, are taking the lead. But the difference between us and San Francisco and Santa Monica, San Francisco is a city-county that can regulate an entire county of 1 million people. Santa Monica has an ocean to the west and boardwalks and wide streets to play with. And we have 1.9 square miles with 35,000 people. It's 18,000 people per square mile, making us still one of the most dense cities in the United States. Our sidewalks are part of the commons, and I think that we already have severe competition for what happens on the commons. whether it's pedestrians, people with dogs, walking their dogs on the sidewalks, businesses setting up outdoor cafes, bars with smoking patios. A lot of our sidewalks are heavily utilized on the Sunset Strip, on Santa Monica Boulevard, and there are even portions of the center part of Santa Monica Boulevard in the center city where the road is so narrow we don't have room for a bike lane, forcing all the bicycles up onto the sidewalks to compete in the area specifically around City Hall. So I think that I want to agree with what my colleague just said. I think that we will revisit this someday, but I can't do it at this point. I think I'm going to allow Santa Monica and San Francisco and Los Angeles to struggle and get some of the bugs out, and we can hopefully revisit it another day. But I think it's not time for us to do it yet, given the competition that we have for the commons and our sidewalks. So with that being said, is there a motion then to approve the staff recommendations for, is there a motion? I guess I'll open it up for a motion. Councilmember Heilman.
I would make a motion to approve staff's recommendations on item 3C, as well as introduce the ordinance in 6B. I'd also give further direction to staff to explore what Councilmember Horvath referenced, which is allowing or exploring allowing businesses to provide these kind of mobility devices as part of a business. So if a hotel wanted to provide this, or if another business in the city wanted to take on the responsibility of having these on their property as part of a business, I would be open to that. But I don't know what the parameters of that kind of program would be.
All right.
I have a question about that. If we're passing an ordinance that says they're banned and businesses can't do that, can you explain to me what it is you're suggesting businesses would be able to do?
That staff would come back to us at a further date with a recommended amendment to the ordinance tonight. The
To say there's a problem, but it sounds like the maker of the motion, and I assume the seconder, that there would be nothing to prohibit Lime or Bird from working with some of our hotel partners in the future.
The
But that's not
ordinance
right.
would prohibit it, but staff would have to come back with an amendment to the ordinance.
Right, but nothing that would prohibit the scooter companies from working with some of our existing businesses to come back with suggested programs. They could do that. I think what we're all saying is we want somebody to be accountable. That if we're going to regulate in this area, we need to have the ability to regulate with some of our known quantities here in the city. So I think that's the maker of the motion. It's been seconded by Councilmember Meister. Is there any further discussion, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, so we're actually passing a motion that says you can't ride these or rent them in our city, and we're having some sort of nebulous discussion about maybe businesses would work with our businesses to come back to our city to rewrite the ordinance. I think we're lying to the public. We have absolutely no interest in having these here, and we should just say it. I mean, if we want to let businesses get together with scooter companies, then why don't we say that? But it just really feels like we're pretending. I'd rather we didn't pretend.
Councilmember Heilman?
I'd rather we not accuse our colleagues of lying. I'm not lying. I listened to the public tonight, and I clearly think that there are people in the city who like these and want to have this as part of our transportation options. And I think that's something that I'm open to. I am not open to allowing them to be dumped on our sidewalks. This ordinance before us does not prohibit the operation of these scooters. It does prohibit them from being made available for rental by a scooter operator, a company. So if somebody operates one of these, they're not going to be able to drop it off and have somebody else come along and use it, because they would be an operator, and the operators are not allowed to operate in the city at this time. What I said before, I'm sincere about. And I think Councilmember Horvath is sincere about it as well. There may be a place in the city for this to be used and to be successful and to be safe for everyone, and I'm certainly open to that. But we don't have the regulations in place yet, and I think we need to ask our staff to do some additional work, and that was the essence of my motion. I think in addition to my motion, and if the seconder will agree, I would also like to suggest that we ask our staff to work with the companies to develop appropriate guidance for the operators so that people who are operating them, because they are allowed to operate in the city, are using appropriate safety mechanisms, helmets, et cetera, so that we don't have anyone injured and that they're abiding by the rules of the road for other people and their safety.
Is that acceptable to the seconder of the motion? Yes, it is. All right.
And last time when we talked about this, there was $10,000 to create a safety video that I thought would be something that our city could do. And if the maker of the motion, the seconder of the motion would agree, then we can have our communications division help with creating that.
I'm okay with that. I think it should be part of the launch of any kind of program that we have where we're authorizing these along with businesses, but staff could begin working on that kind of safety video now.
All right, it's been amended. Is that okay with the seconder of the motion?
It's okay with the
All right.
seconder, but I also want to add that I would like staff to look at infrastructure. I mean, we have sidewalks where we have pedestrians, and we have seniors, and we have people who are in wheelchairs, and we can't have this happening on the sidewalks. So we have to figure out where is it going to be safe to do this.
All right. Any further discussion? There's a motion on the table. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify with an aye. Any
Mayor
opposed?
Duran?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I
City
just
Clerk.
wanted to clarify the motion.
All right.
That we are adopting the resolution for item 3C, and that we are introducing on first reading the ordinance in 6B.
Correct.
And then we are giving staff direction to work with the scooter owners and businesses to see if there could be a relationship in the future. And then also to utilize the $10,000 to explore rules and safety training.
In a future item that's brought back to us.
In a future item that's brought back.
to us, yeah.
And that would include developing some kind of safety campaign or safety video.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
All right. Everybody clear on the motion? All right. Then all those in favor, please indicate with an aye. Any opposed with a nay. Motion passes 4-1, noting Mayor Pro Tem's nay vote. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Let's take a 5-minute break.
No, they're not the worst.
I'd like to call the meeting back to order, if we may. All right, that moves us to item 4A, which is the Star Communities Rating System Feasibility Assessment. And it doesn't look like we have any speakers. And before we do a staff report, does anyone need a staff report, or we just go straight to Councilmember Meister's questions? Okay, there are no speakers, so we'll go straight to Councilmember Meister's questions.
Okay. Why do we need this? I mean, what does this get the city?
Yeah, so cities use STAR communities as, it's kind of like the lead for cities in a way. It's a national self-reporting framework that cities can use to kind of evaluate how they are offering services related to livability and sustainability. And so it essentially is a tool where we can evaluate some of the city's priorities and perhaps use the national best practices that are offered within the framework to kind of enhance the scope of work for different types of initiatives. So, for example, the Vision 20 strategic plan has a number of different kind of core areas that it focuses on that align with the STAR rating system. And so we can use the STAR rating system as a tool to kind of enhance how we go about that process. The same with the community study, the same with some of the other priorities that we have going on in the city.
Okay, so my concern is that we are spending, or in the report it says that the $4,000 fee, whatever, but $20,000 to have a consultant do this. Why can't we do this internally?
Sure. So in order to actually document for certification, STAR has very specific formats and parameters and databases that it uses that we could really benefit the professional services of a consultant to do, very similar to how a building or an architect would use a sustainability consultant for lead services to make sure that they're documenting according to the metrics proposed in the framework.
Okay. Well, I guess, again, my concern is that we're spending $20,000 on a consultant when we can, there are other priorities, initiatives that we've all put forward that have been, are taking years, that I would rather see that $20,000 go towards, but that's just my opinion.
Item has been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All right, Councilmember Halliman.
Wanted to thank you for bringing this and thank you for the concerns you raised. I had a few of the same concerns as I read it. Is this really beneficial? But the more I read it, it seemed like we would also be getting information from them, that there was a sharing of information, not just that we would get certified, but we would get the benefit of best practices. So for that reason, I'm willing to support it.
That's
All right.
correct.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those who are in favor, please indicate with an aye. Any opposed with a nay? Item passes 4-1, noting Councilmember Meister's nay vote. Thank you, staff. Item 4B was moved to consent earlier. That moves us into new business. Item 5A, and I think we probably need to hear from either city manager or city clerk about, since we've now moved 8500 Sunset to a future meeting, about our future council calendar.
Yeah, that's why I was walking around behind the stage here. So it looks as though, in terms of the calendar, based on council member availability for that, the AKA public hearing, we're recommending that we move that item, continue it till the first meeting in September.
Just September 4th.
That's the Tuesday after Labor Day? Okay.
Correct.
And regarding the August 6th meeting, I think there was some hesitance on some of my colleagues on canceling. Councilmember Heilman will be out of the country. I suppose, Councilmember Heilman, if there's any items on that agenda that you wish to have held until your return, you can just let City Clerk and I know, and we'll hold them.
Or I can participate remotely, as long as, if the agenda isn't too big, I can participate remotely.
At this point, the agenda's fairly light. There's a few consent calendar items, no public hearings, and no, again, it's a look ahead. We're not looking at any major items for the 6th.
Okay. So it sounds like we're going to keep August 6th. We'll keep August 20 and we're going to move 8500 Sunset to September 4, correct? I got all that?
Yes.
Okay. Everyone agree? Any opposition? If not, so let it be. Okay, that moves us to item number 5B, Commission and Advisory Board appointments. Councilmember Meister, are you ready to make your direct to public facilities?
Yes, I am. Susan Isaacs will be my new Public Facilities Commissioner, and for LGAB, Alana Roche.
Okay, congratulations to both Susan and Alana on your appointments to the Public Facilities Commission and the Lesbian Gay Advisory Board. Councilmember Heilman, are you ready to do your Lesbian Gay Advisory Board appointment?
Yes, Seppi Shine.
And Seppi Shine from HRC to the Lesbian Gay Advisory Board. Congratulations to Seppi, if you're watching at home, Seppi. Okay, item 5C, we did on consent, thank you. That moves us to any additional public comment. I think I handled it all. I don't think there's any.
Permit by plate parking.
Oh, that's right. I thought we did additional public comment before legislative. Don't we do excluded? Oh, it's excluded consent before legislative, and we have none. Okay. Okay, permit by plate parking facilities, and that's Steve Campbell, Vince Bell, who's presenting.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Did you want us to give a staff report, or did you just want to start with questions?
Do we have any speakers on item 6A? No, we have no speakers, so hold off on the staff report. Who wanted to have this item discussed?
I had a question about, we received an email, I think, I don't know if it was I or we, anyway, we received an email about if we had cars that didn't have some kind of a tag, but we knew that they had reported their license plates, so then they wouldn't be getting a ticket. Is it sending a sort of the wrong kind of visual message that you don't really need to have any kind of permit? Because if you look at the car, you know, that's parked behind you, they don't have a permit, so why do I need a permit? Unless we're planning to change the signs in all the permit parking districts that say, here's the way you can do this without a permit. I'm just not clear that we have enough visual information to start doing this without having some kind of piece of paper that someone can print out and put in their car, or something that says this car has been, you know, checked in with the city parking enforcement. That would be my concern, and I think I'm just aware that, you know, even though we spell it out, even though it says what hours, even though it says curb your wheels and do all these things, we still give people tickets. And I think this is one more cue that says, don't worry about it, you don't have to worry about it, and then they'll get a parking ticket. So I'm wondering if there's some way that we can figure that out as part of this effort.
Okay, I think our staff is kibitzing and to answer that question, then we'll get to council.
I think we can go ahead and look at what signs we can add to the permit signs, so it's a little clearer on that. We do have, this doesn't speak directly to your question, but there will be, the enforcement vehicles will have LPR software, license plate recognition, that you will be able to see what plates are registered for visitor permits. But I understand your point regarding the fact that people might not understand that they still need their plates registered in order to be parking legally.
Yeah, so maybe we could also have something that someone could print out and put in their car that says this license plate was registered with parking enforcement for these hours or something?
We can talk to our developer. Yeah, I think that could be a possibility. Let me see what we can come up with, and we can get back to you, but I don't see that as being a technical problem.
All right, Councilmember Meister.
Yeah, I was just going to ask on the technology, the resident has to type in the plate number, or can it be scanned with an iPhone or?
We
smartphone?
currently don't have any kind of OCR capabilities with the system, but that's something that we're looking at as a further development. OCR, what is optical character recognition, which would allow us to read somebody to take a picture of the plate, and then our system read that information and pick up the information from that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Heilman?
If I understand this right, they can go on their cell phone and apply for a guest permit and just type in the plate number of their guest. And once that's typed in, then that person can park. So if they can take a picture, they can also put in the plate number manually, right?
That is correct. They can do that currently.
Councilmember D'Amico raised a concern that I think we all got the email. Other people parking in this district are going to see cars there with no tag, no visual indication that they are permitted to park in this district. And does that send a message to others that there's no enforcement? I understand the desire to have something, but I think that in some way takes away from the benefit of the program, that now as a resident, I'm going to have to get this paper thing printed off my computer. I'm going to have to go down, put it in the car of my guest, or have them put it in. And I thought the whole point of this was to get away from that. So I think we can look at it, but I actually prefer it without any kind of paper, because I think that's just not necessary. The point I raised earlier was discontinuing issuing visitor permits at the sheriff's station, and I don't know if we're prepared to do that now or if that's something that you're all looking at, but it seems unnecessary since we have Kings Road. It's also seems like it's taking away time from the sheriff's department and their volunteers.
And that is something that we're looking at because we don't have a lot of control over the permits that are issued by the sheriff's department, not to the degree that we have when we issue them at Kings Road or here at City Hall.
Okay.
So that is something we would like to eventually do, is to stop the permits at the sheriff's station.
Thank you.
I put myself on the speakers. I guess I have a comment and a question. I think one of the problems that this solves is that we sometimes get emails from people who say that they hung the guest permit on the mirror, or they put it on their dash and the enforcement officer didn't see it and they got a ticket unfairly. And at least I think this system addresses that series of emails that we get on occasion about people not properly displaying the permit. If their license is input into the system, it resolves that problem. I guess looking forward to the future, since our residents are all putting decals on their windows annually, can we eventually get to a place where those decals may not be necessary, but the system could be expanded to cover the license plate of our residents in the future?
Yes.
Okay. Because if that's possible, many of us keep a car for years. It would be easier then to just re-up our annual permit parking and not have to worry about attaching another decal into our car. And when I go into Hancock Park, I notice the permit required, the big white sign that warns me I'm entering a parking district. So I'm sure we can create something. I think it's a great idea. Thank you, Oscar and Steve and everybody, Vince, I'm sorry, everybody who worked on this bill. Thank you for your report. Okay, with that, it's been, I'm sorry, Councilmember Horvath?
I wasn't clear. Did we discontinue providing the permits out of the sheriff's department? I'm supportive
No,
of that.
we have not, and we won't be doing that for the foreseeable future, because once we roll out this new visitor program, or visitor permit program, we're going to leave the other system in place, including at the sheriff's department.
It's essential that we keep it?
No, it's not. That's my point. Once we go to the permit by plate for visitor permits, we will no longer need the sheriff's department because they allow us to have access 24 hours, and with the online system, we accomplish that goal.
We always need the sheriff's department, but maybe not for this.
I'm sorry. Yes, you are correct.
Thanks.
Okay, it's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Councilmember Heilman. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please indicate with an aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all very much. Now, is there any additional public comment? No? Any additional council member comment? Hearing none, we are adjourned until Monday, August the 20th. Thank you. Oh,
We're adjourned till
July 16th. Sorry.
July 16th.
I was hopeful to July 16th.